All right, so welcome back and thank you so much. Of course, that is what we have for you lined up on the program. We will be taking you, in between the program, we'll be taking you to some of these events as they happen. And of course, we'll also be having a very important conversation this particular morning concerning some of those issues that are shaping the news in the country. Also following in very closely on the burial arrangements of former Tanzania President Dr. John Pombe Magufuli, who died on the 17th of March this particular year from heart complications. And of course, we'll be telling you more about what is happening in Tanzania, a man that has been celebrated by not just the residents of Tanzania, but of course even residents who are coming from different countries, especially in the East African community, and leaders who had an opportunity to serve with him in various capacities. Of course, we will be giving you details about that, but we have a lot happening, in the continent, especially following what followed after the death of Dr. John Pombe Magufuli. We saw Samia Suluhu Hassan. Many know her as Samia Suluhu. Suluhu is the third female head of government of an East African country. That's Tanzania, the third. In the entire East African community, only 3 women have had an opportunity to serve in very senior positions, such as the one she's sitting at right now. She took office on March 19th, 2021, after the death of Dr. John Pombe Magufuli. And before she became president, she served as the vice president of that particular country. And of course, this was following the 2015 general election, and then they were re-elected together with Dr. John Pombe Magufuli for their second term in the year 2020. So I told you she's among the only 3 female women who have served in that high position. So it's forming a lot of, many people have discussed this in various capacities. Of course, her taking office is under very different circumstances, not a nomination, not an election, but that is just something for another day. But it actually just presents another opportunity for us to discuss and dissect how we have treated the journey of women leadership in this continent, in this country. And that is what we want to talk about this morning. And joining me to have that very important conversation, I'm having a panel of 2. It's a lady and a gentleman, and I'm so glad I'm having a gentleman on this panel to talk about this issue, because many a times you're talking about women leadership, it's always women talking about women leadership. I like the fact that you're here, Fred. Fred Okango is the Secretary General of Third Way Alliance Party. Thank you so much for creating time. And of course, we have Gloria Oroba. Gloria is a youth policy analyst, and of course, she is in the in this journey we are talking about, women and leadership, women and politics. She's vying for Bobasi constituency in Kisii County. Thank you so much, Gloria, for creating time. Thank you so much, Fred.
Thank you for having us.
All right. I'd like very quickly to get also your comment, because the moment after Suluhu was sworn in as president, people had mixed reactions. People had, you sort of had an opportunity to give their views about this. I'd like also just to hear both a cocktail of your opinion about her becoming the president and what is ahead for her as a woman to lead that particular country in a continent that the ratio of men vis-a-vis women having such powerful positions has not been very, balanced. Let me just begin there. I'll start with you, Fred.
Thank you, Sophie. First of all, I appreciate your invitation, even though today I'm the minority. While you're talking about women being minority, but on this panel I'm the minority. But with that as it may, I appreciate. I also recognize that today it could be, an orange, do you call it Orange Tuesday?
Pink.
It's pink. You see, now again, a minority in color.
You see, where did orange come from? But
So
it's okay.
So it's okay. No, I think it is not by chance that Her Excellency Madam Suluhu became the president of Jumuiya Tanzania. It is not by design, but that is what their constitution requires of them should a vacancy arise in the office of the president. And to that extent, she is now the serving president of Tanzania. And we wish her well as a community. And may the soul of John Pombe Magufuli rest in peace, even as they struggle to come to terms with the death of their beloved president. However, the global Sustainable Development Goal number 5, which is a UN requirement, requires that there shall be gender equity and empowerment of girls and women. That global goal number 5 is global as it states, and it requires of all institutions, all governments, all departments, because the women have been seen as a weaker sex. The women have been viewed as people who are not capable. But if you look at developing countries, today they are struggling to ensure that they place women in a position of leadership and create an environment that can enable Gloria and the team of other women occupy positions of power because they are suitable, capable, and competent enough, and they have been empowered enough. The only thing that the women of the world have been lacking is opportunity, and we must create those opportunities, not only by accidents or death, but by design and intentional. And that's why I am very glad today that we are starting to see a situation where we could be having women presidents in Africa and in East Africa. I listened to the story of Her Excellency Madam Suluhu Hassan. She started as a very junior officer in Chama cha Mapinduzi. A very junior officer. In fact, when she was narrating a story while she was still the VP, she said that when they were considering the running mate or the vice president to President Magufuli, she was not even aware. She was in the room where the discussions were happening, and because the party leadership requires that they go into caucuses, she was seated outside and she was called by President Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete to come, and she was going to be the vice president. She was overwhelmed. I am confident that going forward, the women of the world, the women of Africa and East Africa will have opportunity. And that's why some of us who are proponents of change are saying we must now start treating our women as equal partners in leadership. And before that, we must create opportunities that will enable them ascend to position of leadership. In sustainable development reporting, either in the corporate or private or public sector, one of the agendas that they must achieve is gender equality and equity in reporting. And that must be seen in corporate and in public.
All right. I don't know what your sentiments will be. You know, Gloria, soon after she was sworn in, the conversation sort of majorly was about her being a woman as compared to, you know, her taking office. Yes. It suddenly became a gender issue. Probably just comment a little bit about that.
What was very interesting to note is, you know, in other instances where a man has taken over or where we have sworn in male president, the first thing they go to talk about or to profile this person, this man, is they say, you know, this is what he did in his career, this is what he did in his life in politics, this is what happens, you know, in his political, you know, allegiances and things like that. But with this, the first thing that happened when she was actually, not sworn in, but the moment that it was announced that Magufuli has passed on, they pulled out all the clips of her talking about women, talking about how it was difficult for her being a wife, and you know, her career and how it has had an impact in her family life, and as a woman, you know, what she feels that she had to overcompensate. The conversation was not about her gains in terms of her political career. The conversation was not about her wins in her professional life. The conversation quickly went to how she actually lost some time having not to be with her children. The conversation went to how her husband is coping with having to be with a wife who's most of the time traveling. And I thought to myself, it's very strange, because that's how it's not strange. That's the first approach when we see a woman in these positions of power and leadership. People quickly, it's almost as if we are sort of aligned to start questioning, how then are her children taking it? Who then has time? How is the husband surviving? Who's cooking for him? We don't think of, oh my goodness, this person has come this far. How did she come this far? You know, what propelled her in her professional life? So, and I think it's something that we can slowly you know, we sort of have to intentionally sensitize the community to understand that as a woman and as a man, we both have equal responsibility to our children. So, I mean, the next time perhaps when Fred Okango, because I know he's vying for MP in Kasipul somewhere, and I would want to know the moment he's sworn in, maybe we should start asking now Okango's children, how are they going to survive without him being in the house? And we should start asking, you know, how is the wife going to survive now? Okango will be traveling too much, you know? So I think there has to be some sort of intentional sensitization that when we're looking at leaders, male or female, I think there should be some sort of fair ground and how we approach that conversation. I'm glad that in Her Excellency Suluhu's speech, when she was sworn in, she was very intentional actually just to keep it professional and keep it in terms of, I am addressing the nation as the president of Tanzania. And I'm glad that it did not digress into some sort of gender of conversation.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. She's a woman who is qualified, like Fred said earlier. She came from a very junior position to where she is right now. So even if it was not for this unfortunate circumstance, she would still be somebody that people would look at as somebody who has very capable leadership qualities, even if circumstances were different. We'll talk about that later. But I don't know whether, Fred, you also have a feeling that there is that imbalance when it comes to vetting, let me use that term for lack of a better one, vetting candidates when it comes to a woman vis-a-vis a man. There is that imbalance that when it is a woman, it sort of touches more on the person, her life, her family, her children. But when it's a man, it's more about the values, the achievements, the accomplishments, what they have done, what they can deliver. I don't know whether you feel the same, like Glorious.
I do. And it's unfortunate because the principle is that people should be appointed or elected on the basis of their personal integrity and suitability. And if you are suitable, it means you are competent enough to occupy that position, whether it is elective or appointive. But if you look at the women, not only in Kenya, in most of democracies, their suitability comes with a tag. Whose wife are you? Whose girlfriend are you? Where do you come from? How many children do you have? Where is your background? But when it comes to us men, then they look at the suitability on the basis of your achievement in the past. They don't look at your suitability on the basis of your sex, on the basis of your, you know, those minor things. And that's why I'm saying in developing countries, we must be very intentional. And in Kenya, to come back in Kenya, we must be very intentional. I have no problem at all as Frederick Okango seeing the next president of this republic to be a woman. In fact, if you ask me, I think it is time Kenya had a female president. But does the historical injustice meted against women allow? They don't allow. Take a case in place, Sophie, in the 2/3 gender principle. When the parliament was struggling to ensure that they passed that law, the women of Kenya in parliament, through their representatives, could not marshal the numbers because they feel they are a minority, because the men in that house could not allow them. So it has been a challenge that we are struggling with, not only as a country, but as a continent. And that's why the UN established goal number 5 that ensures that women must be equal, gender equity. A time will come when as men will be minority, like today I'm a minority on this panel, but at that time, we shall have ensured that women are occupying spaces of leadership and they can now empower men in equal measure. So what I'm saying is the challenges that we are experiencing. Today, my good friend Gloria, who we differ a lot with politically, but we're very good friends, by the way, is running. And Gloria will tell you that when she goes to run for members of parliament, the challenges Gloria will experience will be very different from the challenges I'm going to experience in Kasipul Kabondo. Because Gloria will be asked, who is your husband? She will be asked, where are you coming from? She'll be asked, where are you married to? I mean, those historical challenges, and some of them are traditional, and we must move from there. We must look at women as capable leaders based on their suitability and competency. And we must also look at them as people who can do better. Today, the corporate world has done better than the public world because the C-suits, most of the MDs, the CEOs of companies that are doing better have been led by women.
Are you glad that he's saying that?
No, that is the fact.
No, I am glad that he is actually saying that.
Okango and I, politically, we differ. We are like water and oil, but we're really good friends. And I respect the fact that he actually is one of the few men in politics who tend to understand the dynamics that we are facing as women. And he's right. The challenges that an aspiring woman is facing in politics are completely different from that of a man. I can tell you for a fact that in my constituency, where I am vying in Bobasi constituency, yes, the first thing that they ask is, where are you married from? Because if you're not married from Bobasi and you're married from another constituency, then, but you come from that constituency, then we are definitely not going to allow you to try and get a position of leadership in this constituency, because once you're married, you're considered not part of that constituency, but wherever it is that you're married. So, and in my situation then, you know, my answer is very clear. I'm not married from that region, and so therefore there is some sort of grace. But then you then go to an aspiring male politician who's not questioned where he's married from. He's not questioned whether he comes from there, whether he's just decided to, you know, cross over and think, you know, I live here, I've lived here for a couple of years, perhaps I should vie for Member of Parliament here. So it's completely different. I've had instances where particularly the men are not interested in the changes that you want to come and bring to that community. You know, you tell them, I would like to bring infrastructure, I would like to push that our CDF is utilized well and whatever, and they're not interested in that. They simply would like to push an agenda of how many children do you have? Why do you have one child? You should have, by the time you're becoming a leader, if you think you want to be a leader, you should have at least sired up to maybe 6 children, and then maybe we'll take you seriously. And it goes as far as when there's a realization, which I think now it's actually, there's like an awakening, particularly in my county, in Kisii County. There is an awakening that women are leaders. There is an awakening that actually, given a chance, they might, you know, propel our agenda in terms of development. So, and that's the reason why, for instance, you've seen certain political parties like UDA having enough faith in that Kisii County to actually pick a woman and endorse a woman as their candidate. You know, in Bonchari, the candidate for UDA is actually a woman. And I believe, for me, those are milestones, those are wins, because now the moment a party such as UDA actually fronted that particular woman, a week and a half later, we got another woman actually vying, and another party saying, you know what, we're actually going to believe in you.
Happens,
so we normalized, we started normalizing the idea of women in politics. But I'll tell you the funny thing that one of the things that came out when the posters came out, it was because they're not so used to seeing a woman even in a political poster running for a seat. Some of the comments that were coming out is, yeah, but she looks so old. And I was saying, you know, this woman is the wife of the late MP Oro. The late MP Oro is years older than her. But when we put a man who's old on the poster, you know, those are not the things we pick out, like, oh, this man is so old. No, we look at other things. So I think we are making strides. I truly, sincerely believe that this coming era, the next 15 months, is going to be a changing, this is like a transition. And I'm glad that the people of Kisii County, particularly those of Bobasi constituency where I come from, have actually, they're embracing women in leadership, and they're starting to understand leadership isn't actually about your age, your gender, or what, it's really about your capabilities and what you're going to bring to the community.
The last time we were having this conversation,
yes.
I don't know whether anything has changed in between. You were challenging the patriarchy in politics.
Yes.
And you talked about your region not having a single female elected leader. Yes. I don't know whether that has changed or
we still, I mean, other than the women rep and one MCA, we actually don't have any female elected MP in Kisii County. And the sad thing is also that it's not that we don't have one that is elected, but in the last election, actually none vied for it. So it goes both ways. And I remember last time when I left a bit early, I said, you know, I have to go and push the agenda of women. I was actually going to ensure and to fight for a woman candidate to be embraced in a certain party. And I'm glad that now I'm sitting here 2 weeks later and we have a chance to, you know, sort of break that patriarchy in Kisii County by actually electing a woman MP in Bonchari.
Okay.
Yes.
You know, just talking about this and saying that, you know, it could be two issues, which include no woman came forth to vie. Fred, how do you read this, though? Why is it that we have not accepted, we have not embraced, we have not normalized a woman being a leader? And today I'm not talking about any position, I'm talking about these top positions. Let's leave these top positions. There are positions that we say we have reserved for women, but there are others that you'd actually not even hear women being mentioned, or you're not, even if you're a woman, you would feel like you cannot even attempt to say that you want to be there. I mean, why do we live in such a, with such a mindset as a society? What could be wrong with our line of thought when it comes to women and leadership in this country?
You see, Safin, these are historical injustices, and they are very severe, because women, for a very long time, people have believed that they belong to the kitchen. When a man comes from work, the only thing they expect is that they are served food, and then that's it from a woman. And the woman should be at home, take care of the children, while the man is going out to fend for the family. Things have changed. In Kenya, the reason why we don't have women, a lot of them in leadership, is because the perception that Kenyans have had against women. They're looking at women and they're thinking they are not capable. They're looking at women, they're thinking they're not competent. If you look at the affirmative action programs, they have been made to even make women believe that they are a weaker sex. Time has changed. We must consider women as equal sex in both competency and suitability. And that's why the proposals in the amendments that when you are going for leadership positions like governor of a county, then your running mate, if the governor candidate is a male, then the running mate must be of opposite gender, a female, and vice versa. That one is a way of ensuring that we give women equal opportunity. But most importantly, I am happy that there are so many women who are doing a great job in elective positions, not nomination. Millie Odhiambo is one of the women that has come from very far as a nominated, went and competed against men, floored them, and today is a member of parliament. I've seen others from Ukambani, I've seen others from Rift Valley, and I've seen others from Central Kenya. You know, there are quite a number. So for me, I'm thinking that the reason why that has been happening is because we have never offered women opportunity. All along we have been thinking women have got their place. And that's why this term woman rep was very demeaning. Because people look at you and say, what is this woman rep saying? Some people believe you are just representing women. No. We must now change the language. Then we must now change our mindset. In changing the language, we must look at the Constitution and say, how do we ensure that we create structures that will attract women to get into leadership positions? Number one, we must start incentivizing the political parties where we are as leaders, for example. And in incentivizing, we must ensure that we create opportunities for women right from the political parties. Her Excellency Madam Suluhu was given an opportunity in the party, Chama cha Mapinduzi. And that's how she rose all the way to now. God forbid their president died, but now she's a president. But were it not for the opportunity that she was given in the party, she would not. So in political leadership, we must start from the political parties. Ensure that our parties occupy a space for women, and our parties achieve that two-thirds gender. Number two, we must now be deliberate as voters. Because when Gloria presents her papers as a nominee for Member of Parliament, and we still look at Gloria as a young woman who is not capable, then we are not going to create... There are so many people who look after Gloria, and they believe when Gloria makes it, I can also make it. So if you are denying Gloria opportunity, then you are denying 1 million women opportunity through Gloria. Number three, we must also be very deliberate to ensure that when women stand for positions, we support them. Because a lot of men are violent, and when you go into politics, politics is about fights and war. People start fighting, people start kicking each other, and women fear violence. Even in your own house, when you see violence, you tend to back off because you believe that you're not capable of fighting, you can only talk. So women have been given the skill to be very empathetic, It is in the house, women cook, they ensure that kids are okay. If we can trust the women of Kenya with our children, we can trust the women of Kenya with our money, we can trust the women of Kenya with our own hearts as our girlfriends and wives, then why don't we trust them with the country? We must change.
Hapo kwa money. Anyway. Gloria, you're young, you're a woman, you're vying in a region that still has a long way to go before actually a woman leader can be accepted, women leadership can be normalized. What's your game plan?
You know what? I actually don't have a game plan. I just have such a strong conviction that if I don't do it, nobody will. And I have a strong conviction that it has to start from somewhere. And I know that being a sort of pioneer will cost me a lot. It will probably cost me a lot of anxiety. I will have to pick up a lot of battles because really, you're sort of a pioneer. So people are going to, I'm a case study. And I don't really have a game plan. You know, I have always wanted to be in politics, and I've always wanted to go back to my home in Bobasi and bring development. And so those are the two things that I just, you know, push through with. So I think one of the things that I've quickly learned is to understand, to not be so resentful with the reactions that I might be getting in certain regions. So I think maybe you can say my game plan is that I'm understanding. I understand that I am venturing in waters that have not been, you know, nobody has swum there before. I am understanding that the notion that a young woman, you know, I'm still in the age bracket of the youth, that a young woman would go into Kisii County and actually offer herself as a leader is going to be contested by many. But I also understand that there's so many other young women and old women who look up to me and sincerely have all their hopes that, you know, whatever it is I'm trying to achieve comes to fruition because they believe in me and they believe in leadership and women in leadership. So I think if I don't come that far as to be the elected member of parliament of Bobasi constituency, I can already see the wins that I have made in this journey. Just sitting here and saying that I was very instrumental in pushing the agenda of the women by ensuring that Mama Teresa Oro was on that ticket, I think that to me is one win. The other win I can say is immediately after that, we actually got another woman who got endorsed by another party. Those are such major strides. And I can tell you for a fact that going forward, as we are preparing for 2022, I'm getting so many phone calls from a lot of women from Kisii County who want to vie as MCAs, as MPs, and they're saying, you know what, we've seen what you're doing and we actually believe in this, so where do we start? And the fact that I can sit somewhere and say, okay, there's a mindset that's being changed, and including from men who believe in what I'm trying to do and are supporting the venture of actually elevating women. I think that in itself is such a major win that, you know, sometimes we become too negative in Kenya and we say, oh, all is lost, women are not allowed this. We have to think about the gains, the gains that we've had in that area, particularly women in politics and leadership. We've seen the likes of Martha Karua, we've seen the likes of Millie Odhiambo, like my colleague said, we've seen the likes of Susan Kihikia, Gladys Boschole. Those are wins. We have to celebrate the strides that we are making and understand that we are not going to conquer the world in one day. It takes a while, and it might take up to 20 years for us to normalize that women are leaders in all of these regions, but it has to start from somewhere. And I think for me, on the issue of the proposed the referendum, the Building Bridges Initiative referendum, I think one of the things that they are really missing, you know, you can talk about we're pushing the Senate to have 50-50 representation in terms of gender. They can say that we've also insisted that, you know, if the governor is a male, then they will somehow be coerced to pick a female. But I want to remind a lot of these drafters of these bills that affirmative action is not throwing things at women or throwing things at the gender that is being, you know, marginalized. Affirmative action must come with dignity. Affirmative action must come with respect. And that's the reason, as as Okango said, that's the reason the moment that affirmative action was coined into a word that says women representative of this county, it lost the meaning, the dignity, and the respect of what we were trying to achieve. And I believe that as much as we are saying we are pushing the women to the Senate, and so the women should be okay, we have to remember that, the fact that the women representative seat is being scrapped out, it means that the affirmative fund that was coming with that seat, because they had a budget to push the agenda of women, that's gone now, you know? And when we say we are going to have, if the governor is a male, then the deputy must be a female, we have to be very, very honest. The wording that has been used there is progressively. The wording that has been used in that bill means that we will encourage you, that it is not mandatory, it is not a must that you will actually pick a woman. So those are the kind of small hiccups that are there in that bill. And at the end of the day, when you look at the gains that we are making as women from the proposed bill and the losses that we, you know, that we are actually stepping back from, we have a lot more to lose by passing that bill than we have to gain as women.
Fred, I know you're itching to respond, but funny enough, you know, you're among the few women that have had criticized that many women have actually just embraced the proposal to have the 50-50 representation in Senate. Fred, I'll give you a chance to respond to her critique of the proposals contained in the bill. She says women have more to lose.
Can I address why there are more women supporting that bill? Because many years and years over, there is a language that is used to address women, and that language is very deceitful. Why can't someone come out and say we are removing the women representative seats from this and it will go with the budget? We are taking you to the Senate where you don't have a budget. Why can't they come and say the clear understanding so that I know I'll be in Senate as a woman doing what? Doing oversight. Will I have an affirmative fund so that I can push the agenda of women? No. Will I will be a body count for the votes, you know? So I think the reason why many women have they've fallen into that trap of just saying, hey, we are going to have women senators, we are going to have more whatever, is because this is the coercive language that has always been used with women. You know the way they say, ukitaka kwenda kuongelesha mwanamke, unaanza kumtongoza, you know? Tunatongozwa, that is what is happening. But the facts are, we are actually losing.
Fred, is it true? Is this what is happening? Is it just a body count to have more women?
It's not true. It's not true. Because, first of all, I want to refer to our viewers. I want to refer our viewers to Article 180 of the Constitution of Kenya. The BBI has proposed an amendment to that article. And if you read that article, clause 47 of the bill, it says, it uses the word shall. And I want to read it verbatim so that we are clear. Article 180 of the Constitution is amended by inserting the following new clause immediately after clause 5. In making the nomination under clause 5A, candidate for election as county governor shall consider a person of opposite gender. So it's not at their discretion, it is mandatory. Number two, when women are having a 50-50, men and women are having a 50-50 representation in the Senate, it is good for this country. And tell me why. Because Senate is the house of devolution. And the women in the Senate shall now have equal vote. Currently, majority of the women in the Senate, when they make a decision through a vote, they make a decision through what is called delegation. And in that delegation is, the head of delegation is the person who is elected. The nominated women, majority of them, don't have a vote unless it is an issue that do not concern the county. That's what the Constitution says today. So the amendment that has been proposed by BBI cures so many things. Number one, it cures the issue of two-thirds gender in the Senate as a section of parliament. Number two, it gives women a voice to control resources that are going to the county in totality. And they are not only having the GAF now, they're controlling the entire 35, just like the other senators are oversighting the same, the male senators. So they have more resources to look into. And remember, the allocation
of the money that is going to the county, one of the criteria shall also be achievement of the provisions of socioeconomic crisis in Article 43, water, electricity, food, health care. Those are issues that are very close and dear to women because they encounter such problems daily. So putting 50-50 representation in the Senate, key was the problem that our people are undergoing in the counties. Number 3, in the House, the National Assembly, the provision is such that in the event that women are not elected, in the event that Gloria doesn't make it, I know she'll make it, but
that's not a good example.
I know Gloria will make it, but I'm saying in the unlikely event, and I would want also I'll give Gloria a ticket as a party, because I know they'll play her. But in the unlikely event that Gloria will not make it, and the BBI has passed, you know what will happen? They'll consider Gloria's ranking in the last election against other women, and it is on that basis that Gloria shall be specially be elected, considering his or her participation in the election. So Gloria will not lose as a woman. She will have a place in the National Assembly to represent and further the aspiration of other women and other Kenyans as she was looking for.
But
so
how many Glorias will get a chance to be in that
wait a minute, let me just finish. So for me, I think either way, we must create opportunities for our women. We must ensure that our constitution gives them equal opportunity, just like it is in the Bill of Rights, because we are all equal before the law. Number 3, we must also ensure that these women, as they go into competitive politics, we create an environment that do not scare them, because a lot of times women have been scared, they run away. BBI.
All right. Gloria, I know you're itching.
No, let me just
allow me to pay the bills. Allow me to pay the bills, and then we'll come back after this particular break for you to react to what he has said. We'll take a very short break. We are coming back. This is News Check.